Why, hello there. My name is Mountain, and today I'd like to talk to you about this. And what is this, you might ask? Well, this, my friends, is the Aer Gym Tote 2 21 liters. Now, as the name suggests, this is the second iteration of what is described on the product page as, quote, the everyday gym and work tote bag, and it's released by Aer, the San Francisco-based manufacturer of a dizzying array of bags, slings, pouches, luggages, tote bags, and other accessories. And I've reviewed a lot of their products on the channel before. Now, its main claim to fame is that it's a fairly compact solution at 21 liters for those looking to carry one bag for both their gym stuff and their EDC work stuff. And it beats having like a separate gym duffel and another bag or backpack for your EDC work thing. And it's smaller than both of those combined. It's got pretty good in and out access. We're going to talk all about this in the full review here, but this nice zipper top opening for security, unlike a lot of other totes. Lots of good small item or some decent small item organization and large open spaces that makes it really good for those two use cases that I mentioned. Now, in terms of areas for improvement, I think that probably the biggest one that stuck out to me is like, well, it has this included kind of shoe compartment, as one would expect from a gym-focused bag, loading even a moderately sized pair of like men's shoes, like, you know, a 28 or 30 centimeters, something like that, immediately robs the main compartment of up to like 50% of its capacity, which leaves a lot less space in a, it's a 21 liter tote than you might expect for like carrying your other stuff in there. It also, as a tote of 21 liters, relatively svelte proportions, struggles to accommodate any kind of like bulky gear. So forget about putting like a big basketball, or you might be able to get like some boxing gloves or something in there. Maybe a yoga mat you can strap to the top. I'll talk about that. But like it struggles to accommodate bulkier stuff that you would be able to get like in a more traditional kind of gym duffel with the big D opening and big capacity and all that. So in terms of an overview of this bag, it's available in one size, 21 liters, in two material ways, Cordura nylon and X-Pack. Sometimes they offer Ultra, but this one I think only comes in those two material ways, nylon and X-Pack. Colors vary by the material way, black, navy, or olive for the nylon, and then black for the X-Pack. I'll put the retail price, it releases today actually as the time of this video. I'll put the retail price in the description below. You can get it over on www.aersf.com or your local country retailer. And this is the 21 liter in Cordura black nylon. Now, as a disclaimer, I've been using this as my gym bag for the past month and a half or so at this point. I go to the gym about 2 or 3 times a week, although probably I should be going more often. I'd like to thank Aer for sending this over for review. Even though they sent this over, all the opinions are my own. They don't get any input into this video. And even though this video is releasing on the day that I think this bag goes on sale, they don't actually know when it's going live. I just happen to be doing it on this day. So in terms of the materials and the design of this bag, I usually say when I'm reviewing Aer bags that they tend to feature some of the best materials and kind of general execution you can get at generally available consumer price points. Like they've really owned like the Cordura nylon with the YKK coated zips and Hypalon and Duraflex look. Like, it's such a good standard, high quality consumer materials, but like they just really put it together in this sort of compelling set of packages that now I think has become associated with their look. They also offer more exotic fabrics. As I mentioned, this one's available, I think, in X-Pack, though not in Ultra. And, the observation of the quality of the materials and the execution on this bag remains consistent kind of with what I just said. And in terms of those materials, as I mentioned, on this one, you've got like this nice Cordura nylon. You've got this YKK coated water resistant zipper with a Hypalon zipper pull. Just generally nice like nylon strapping and all of that stuff. Blue Sign approved Blue Sign approved nylon interior, etc. In terms of the design of the bag, I mean, it's a tote, so it's got kind of like a nice square tote-ish kind of, dimensions, nothing too like radically innovative there. You do have this nice kind of like reinforcing band around the top that helps it kind of keep its shape upright, even when not fully loaded out. I mean, it does depend exactly how you load this out, but it's a gym tote, so generally you have stuff in the main compartment. Often you have shoes in this main shoe compartment, so that kind of really helps it just sort of sit down like that. The top is always kind of available for easy loading and unloading because of like this kind of nice rim around the top there. And you have a lot of like subtle pocketing like on the front here, on the back here, etc. So generally, I think like this is, and I did mention like this is a bag that, opens up nice and wide because of the opening style there. You can get right into the internal contents of the bag and get everything that you need out of there. Just generally like really it's a nice square rectangular kind of like tote thing. Now, in terms of like water resistance, there's no explicit water or dirt resistance, especially in the nylon version, I would say at least, which I think maybe bears a few additional seconds of discussion in the context of what is a gym tote. like you get the standard resistance of like the nylon, which probably has a coating on it for like a little bit of dust and like DWR type resistance. But like the top opening has these big gaps, even when you know, have the bag zippered shut. So like, you know, obviously water will get in through there. Rain resistance is really out of the question for either nylon or X-Pack. Obviously no tape seams or anything like that. But also, like, as a gym tote, you know, you'll be setting this down on some relatively janky floor. For those of you that are maybe going to a little bit, you know, I don't want to say grimy, but like, you know, just some gyms can be a little bit gross, kind of like water in the locker room or whatever. I would have loved to have seen like a Hypalon bottom panel, or maybe something that had like additional increased water resistance here. You know, if it was just my gym tote, I'd be okay if it got a little bit gross, but since you're ostensibly carrying this around in EDC use as well, like, might want to consider that. Okay, so let's get into the features of the bag, starting with the front compartment. The front of the bag features this large kind of like trapezoidal shaped pocket. And I think that's the first time in however many reviews I've done that I've ever described a front pocket in a bag or any pocket in a bag as trapezoidal in shape. But access is via this coated YKK zipper with a nice Hypalon zipper garage at the top, nice Hypalon zipper pull, laser cut. Opens with one hand really easily in just about any orientation. I mean, it's a tote, so it's probably just in that orientation. But you know, what I want to point out is it's really nice in there. The pocket in the V2 is a nice improvement of the V1 version of this tote, which had like the big like coated zipper, you know, down the front, which was quite frictionful, and it was vertically oriented. You can really only use like half the bag, half the front pocket. It was a little bit of a weird structure, and I'll show you the city tote here, which is very similar in a minute, and you can kind of see what that looks like. So this one just being on the side gives you the whole front trapezoid area to use. It has some subtle patterning, as you can kind of see on each of these corners up here. Like, it gives you a little bit of darting, so there's a little bit of subtle capacity you can see into this compartment, independent dimensioning. And there are definite limits. Like, you're not gonna fit like huge bulky things in here, but you could probably squeeze like a towel or something like that in there. So let me just show you what I have inside of here. So I have in here some weightlifting gloves, and then I just have my lock, my gym lock. So anyway, you can see like I've got quite a nice capacity inside of here. Small towel, weightlifting gloves, maybe a jump rope, something like that. Probably like a big rolled up sweater or big headphones might struggle to fit. I do have some of my like gym headphones, the Sony, whatever these are, the latest ones. You know, you can fit them in here, especially if you fold them flat. But it's not something I would like, you know, you can see it kind of bulges out a lot. It's not something I would normally carry in there. One thing I really liked is how quick and easy it was to access. You can see like with the side opening, the large size, and kind of like the subtle independent dimension. It's like really easy to stuff and get in and out with one hand without even having to think or look at the bag or the front of the bag, which is really great. And when maybe like in EDC mode, I'll put like my work ID or maybe my hand cream or like a, you know, a small like a USB battery or something like that inside of here. So flipping the bag around, on the back, we have the rear compartment. The back has like this single flat pocket up here at the top. And you can see it extends down to around right here. It's really flat. There's no like independent dimension, although you have slight flex on the material, very slight. It extends up over the zipper line, which is, I think, you know, always a nice touch unless you slightly overload this compartment. This is a non-coated one-way YKK reversed zipper, nice Hypalon pull again, one-handed operation. It's really flat, so it's intended for flat things. I think I put my phone in here sometimes. I think that's probably one of the things it's most useful for. Larger flat things like business papers or gym papers or magazines won't fit. A small book or like a Kindle might, if the book is too thick, it will kind of obviously bulge out a little bit here. You can fit things like a gym ID for easy access, a wallet, maybe some small earbuds. Anything that's too lumpy or chunky is gonna like kind of stick out here. I personally don't use this pocket that much. I usually just kind of leave it blank. In fact, I don't think I have anything. Sorry. No, I have my gym ID inside of here. You know, usually I'll have nothing in there for EDC use case, and then when I go to the gym, I'll either have my ID either in the front or sometimes I'll stick it in the back just because it's really easy and ready to go. But for the EDC use case, you know, it helps, I think, to always have like an additional first order pocket beyond just the front one. So like, I'm glad it's there even if I don't personally use it. So turning the bag to the side, we see the other major pocket, probably one of the most distinctive features of this bag, is the side ventilated opening with the built-in shoe pouch. And it opens with this U shape here, as you can see. On the top, we have a little Hypalon venting hole. The zipper itself is just a reverse coil, non-waterproof, non-water resistant zipper, which I think is probably okay. Although, like I said, again, if you're setting this down in like really gross, wet locker rooms or whatever, you might not like that as much, but this makes for a very smooth opening around the U shape, which is always appreciated here. The shoe pouch fills up the entirety of the interior of the compartment, which I'll show you here in a second. And it stows when not in use. So let me just show you here so you can obviously see. I've got here a pair of men's running shoes, size 28 in there. You can fit like 30. I'm wearing from like a 28 to 30 centimeter, which is like what, US like 11 to 12 or something like that. You can see it kind of fits all in there. I'll show you all that here in a second. Inside, looking at it, you have this front flap, and there's a little pocket in here which you can use to take the shoe compartment out and roll that up and kind of stick it in there if you wanted to stow it up out of the way, like this, and then you can zip it shut, and then it frees up your interior compartment, which I'll show you here actually maybe right now. So opening this up, let me take all my stuff out of here, and you can see the interior. Here's the shoe compartment, and you can see it's all stowed up and rolled up how I showed you. So now you have this nice big wide opening here. But when the shoe compartment is deployed, open it up like this. You take your shoes and stick them in here. You can see right away it takes up a huge amount of the main compartment, anywhere from like 30 to 50%. I would say for like most men's shoes, you're looking at it taking up at least 50%, or up to 50%, probably around 40-50% of the main compartment here. Maybe women's shoes or slightly smaller shoes are going to take up less. And if we look at it from the front, the shoes when loaded are taking up about this much space here. So quite a significant chunk of that. The shoe compartment itself is quite robust. It feels double layered. I don't know if it's coated or not coated. Well, I don't know if it's seam sealed, but it feels fairly robust. I didn't check for smells, but I will say that I don't smell anything like gross shoe inside of here from my casual interactions with this bag, but obviously I didn't stick my nose in there and deeply inhale because that's a weird thing to do. And here we just were to throw some of the other stuff, which I'll talk about here in a second, into there. You can see like with the shoe compartment, kind of loaded up, it does take up like, it's most of the thing is pretty full. Anyway, I really like the ease of access to a certain extent of this, but I dislike how inefficient it kind of becomes once you've got the thing loaded in here. The thing I wanted to mention that's sort of like maybe obvious common sense is like, if you're looking to maximize the limited capacity of a 21 liter, gym focused tote, you want to take something like, here's the Aer shoe pouch, a separate sold shoe pouch that they make, and put your shoes in there and just kind of drop it in. There's just so much more space that way because you just get a much more efficient loading of the capacity. And you can see here, if I put the same amount of things that I had, you can see I still have all this space at the top, whereas before it was sort of just overflowing there. It's just and it would be even more if I kind of had properly rolled up the shoe pouch. But you obviously are trading off the convenience of like this built-in shoe pouch. So for me, since this is a gym tote, I do tend to use this shoe pouch, this built-in shoe compartment, but I just wanted to mention that. So next, let's talk about this main compartment, starting with like access, which is via this one-way, non-coated, reverse coil zipper. And it just opens up nice and easy like this. It opens really wide. I like that this thing zippers shut at the top. It helps keep everything inside secure while still allowing a lot of really full access to the contents. These kind of zipper top tote openings always struck me as like an area where the solutions on the market, including this one, are not bad, but I think they could be slightly more refined. Like if you look at this sort of like tail hanging off and then this loop up here, this is a common solution, and it gives you purchase on either end to be able to kind of, hold something here. You got this nice little Hypalon coating at the end, like a little tail, to be able to easily zipper and unzipper this thing. But when you're done, you got to like take the little tail and like kind of tuck it in there, just a little bit. I wish there were just a little bit more refinement on that, but obviously that's a very small nitpick. It is very fast. It is very easy. It opens wide open like that and just gives you the full access to the contents like that. As I mentioned earlier too, because of the way that this kind of seals, like you have these two gaps on the top, so this isn't fully water resistant. So just something to keep in mind if you're out in a rainstorm with this. So opening this up and looking at the main inside here, we'll talk about the contents here in a second. Let me take some of them out so you can kind of see a little bit more fully. This is the front of the bag. This is the back of the bag. And in the front of the bag, we have here some built-in kind of zippers. So starting here, you have this little small zipper compartment. Looking at it from the front, it takes up about this much space, centered and about down to about a little bit about halfway down there. So inside of here, it opens up. There's a key leash that's built in. It's just for fishing your keys in and out. It's not long enough for you to like open your door with this thing kind of still attached. Nice, standard key clip implementation. It's got my keys on here. And then I've got like a pair of Power Beats Pro or whatever these are called. I forget what these are called. Beats workout headphones. Sometimes I'll wear smaller headphones. Sometimes I'll wear bigger headphones. Depends on what I'm doing at the gym. So I tend to carry both. And then other than that, it's just an empty pocket, except for at the top, you have a nice little AirTag pocket hidden right above the zipper line, which I really like. I like that they always have this proper pocket rather than like a tag inside of the main compartment there. You could put things like your wallet or other, things that you want to keep secure in there, but usually I just keep these two in there. And then opening it up a little bit further, in front of that, kind of on the front plane of the bag, you have these two nice big mesh stretch dump pockets. They run about 2/3 of the height of the bag, so from here all the way down. Nice and big. They've got this little bit of like reinforced elastic at the top there. That makes it really easy to kind of load them because they kind of slightly gap open when you're looking in from the top of the bag, which is really great. Easy to drop things in and out, but still keeps them like relatively secure, separated from the rest of the stuff. Plus you have this nice top zip opening, which gives you additional kind of security for whatever you put inside of there. So inside of this one, I have my phone here, my iPhone 15 Pro Max, and then a wallet. This is the Evergoods Element Bifold. And on this one, I have a Matador towel. Usually there's towels at my gym, but this one I take just in case I need an emergency towel for whatever reason. And then I have like some deodorant inside of here. And that's it. But you can see when you look in, like just how nice and easy it is to just drop things. You watch inside like this, like it's how easy it is to just drop things in there. Even bigger, bulkier things like this just fit right nicely into those two pockets. Looking at the side here, we have a water bottle pocket, which is side mounted. Same kind of high quality, dense, elastic materials, the front pockets. It folds flat against the wall when it's not in use, which is really great. It stays right out there. Otherwise, it just pops right open. Similarly, really easy to just kind of drop things into there. It has a stiffening layer at the top, same as those other pockets here. Very easy in and out. Here I have my Purist 18-ounce water bottle, which is about 530 milliliters. One thing you'll need to be careful about is the size of the water bottle that this can accommodate in terms of vertical height. So you can have something that's a little bit girthier than this one, but when you look at it in terms of height, it's probably, you can't go much higher than this because the top of the tote is right underneath this like band here. So it really kind of, this is sort of, you can go slightly higher than this one in terms of height, but not too much. Anything like super tall is not going to fit in there, but it is kind of nice and it just sort of like nests in there, out of the way, and stays there when you don't need it. This bottle is 20 centimeters tall by 6 centimeters in diameter. So, if you're taking like, huge 2-liter gym jugs or like a huge protein shaker or something with like a handle on it, it's not going to fit in here, but something smaller like this will. So looking at the back of the bag, here we have on the back these two big flat pockets, which are padded. One is for like your tablet in the front, and one's for your laptop or whatever else you want to put in there. Fleece line, padded on all sides with this kind of retaining strap. If we switch to the overhead view, you're going to be able to see this is like nice wide. It runs the entire width of the back panel of the bag. Padded, as I mentioned, and you've got a little bit of a false bottom. I mean, it kind of sits on the bottom, but there's like padding, and then there's for the laptop compartment, and then the bottom padding of the bag as well. So I would say it will keep most of your laptops sufficiently insulated against like shocks. It is technically a false bottom. It just kind of rests against the bottom as well, if you will. I have here a 14-inch M4 MacBook Pro, but you can fit easily a 16-inch in there. There's a fair amount of flex on this panel, so you could fit even like a slightly thicker laptop. And then in front, I have this very lightly padded kind of pocket, which is ostensibly for your tablet. You could put like another laptop in there. It also runs pretty much the full width of the back panel, though it has less depth than the back laptop compartment and less padding as well. You can fit another small laptop or like a papers of business or gym or otherwise in there. Books, notebook, whatever. The elastic retaining strap I think is a nice touch. So in case you have the tote open and you don't accidentally knock it over. You don't want your laptop to fall out. It also, you know, will keep it nice and retained in there. And when it's not in use, it'll just affix to the back fleece lining like this, which is quite nice. And that really kind of just leaves us then the main compartment of the bag, which I've already talked about. A lot of it gets consumed by the shoe pouch. And just show you one more time what this main compartment looks like. When you don't have the shoe pouch, you know, used, you have it kind of just pulled up, you get this nice big square gray space with a little bit of light padding at the bottom, which I think is it's just a great open space. You can see it's ringed with all these kind of pockets on 3 sides. That's a great combination. You could obviously use this for things like maybe an overnight trip or whatever. I'll talk about that in a second. But when you do put the shoes inside, you can see, you know, it obviously starts to take up a lot more space. Here, I tend to stack the shoes one on top of each other. And then you can see it pretty much takes up 2/3 of or more of like the width of the bag. There's a little bit of a gully here, and then you've got like, you know, some space on top there. So what I usually carry to the gym, I already showed you some of the stuff, like I have my weightlifting gloves or whatever in the front. There you'll have like some, I don't know, some body wipes. Usually, you know, you take a shower, but in case you can't or whatever, I got some body wipes in there. I've got my deodorant and my towel I already mentioned in this kind of front compartment here. And then I have here like a pair of men's sweatpants. I just take those, roll those up and drop those in the top, kind of workout t-shirt, and just take those and drop those in on the top. And like I said, I'll usually carry 2 pairs of headphones depending on what kind of workout I'm doing. So these are the latest Sony, whatever, over the head earphones, just drop those in on the top like that. And then there's still a little bit of space like that, but not too much. But that's usually what I'll carry inside of like my standard gym loadout. Shoulder straps and load carriage. Load carriage on this bag is basically the shoulder straps, integrated, stiff. They kind of stand up on their own, as you can kind of see. There is like a clip on the side here if you want. It's like an old-fashioned traditional, like, you know, like what do you call it, snap type clip closure. You can use that to bind the straps together if you want with a single snap, and then it'll kind of stand up on its own. These straps themselves are fairly stiff, nylon webbing, no padding, and the way that they're constructed is, as you can see in this overhead view, like they're just a flat layer, and then they're kind of folded over and sewn and then kind of cross-stitched to give them like some stiffness. They stick up quite prominently on their own, even after having used them for a few weeks now. Although I have an older version of like the Aer City Tote, which I'll show you, that's very similar, where they, you know, they get softer over time. In terms of carry comfort, I wouldn't say these are super comfortable. Like, they're very stiff, they're not padded. There's no like sticky layer underneath to like kind of keep it from slipping off of your shoulder or anything like that. But I don't really think one routinely carries a gym tote for extended periods of time. It's really more like from the car to the locker room or back. So I'd say in that case, it's totally sufficient. However, if you are using this as like your single EDC gym tote bag, and you got it loaded out like that, then it gets a little bit, I did carry this as like my main EDC gym tote bag for a few days. It wasn't like super comfortable, to be honest with you, especially when commuting by train or whatever. In the car, it didn't matter, but when commuting by train and like walking, it was not the most comfortable. So I do think it's a trade-off, kind of depends. Like, I usually use this now as my main gym tote rather than like EDC and gym tote. So then I don't mind it as much, but you know, something to think about. The handles are non-adjustable, and that simplicity comes with both pros and cons. So like the lack of padding and just the simple sticking up nature of it and makes it super easy to grab it and just drop it over a shoulder. It obviously can be kind of just carried down at your hand, you know, by your side like this or whatever. There's not a lot of muss and fuss, and I also very rarely just even use that snap thing, and it kind of just folds down when it's not in use. It's easy to just take one hand, snap it, you know, go like this, and you're ready to go. The downsides of that is, you know, that lack of carry comfort that I was talking about, and also because it's non-adjustable, like people who are shorter, you might have a problem with it kind of like dragging on the ground, or if you have really long limbs or something like that. Simultaneously, the width here is also not adjustable. So those of you with like really broad shoulders or whatever, you might struggle to get this comfortably over one shoulder. I have, with a total sample size of 3, one person who was smaller than me, one person who's larger than me. I found that all 3 of us could carry this in both orientations, but I just kind of want to carry this or mention that for y'all. This is just over 60 centimeters in total length from like one end all the way down to the other, and 13 centimeters width at the base. And if you kind of measure from like the apex of the carry handle to the base of this kind of strapping here, it's going to be just, I think, over 30 centimeters here. So just wanted to mention that, since there are a lot of different variables, like this should fit most people, but there may be some people who it doesn't fit and it's not adjustable in that way. Flipping the bag around, other bits of load carriage, there's a simple rear luggage strap. Nothing too fancy to say about this. There's no Velcro or whatever. It does a decent job, as you might imagine, from like a fairly square shaped flat bottom tote of just sitting on your roller luggage. It's actually a decently competent overnight bag, which I'll talk a little about here in a second, if you need it. So I actually kind of like that there's this tote here. Like, some people like to travel with like a tote and a roller bag, simply because of the ease of access. And I think like the fact that it has like the zipper top and a nice flat surface, and if you roll up the shoe pouch, it actually kind of like gives you a lot of good internal big space plus some pocketing. It makes a pretty good overnight bag, and this is a nice little touch for those of you that are using this for travel. And maybe the last part of like the load carriage per se is there's these 1, 2, and on the back 3, 4 little loops here. Fairly robust sewn nylon loops that sew into this kind of top reinforcement layer. And there's no like explicit strap or anything sold for them, but you can like take some cordage or little clip straps or a variety of third party, or just like I said, just some cord, and run some straps or some string over the top here. You can use that to secure, for example, like a yoga mat to the top, sit it on top here and just run the cord over there and tie it down. You might be able to put like a shoulder strap, clip it one to each end, and kind of have like a shoulder strap situation going on. It's not, there's no explicit shoulder strap that's sold for that, but if you look at it, you've got like some nice bar tack stitching there, the fairly like robust straps. So I think that they would probably hold up for the kind of loadouts that you would have in a 21-liter tote. I didn't use them other than to like sometimes clip something like a lock or something on the outside of my keys, with like a carabiner or something like that sometimes, but I like that they're there. So who is this bag for and who is it not for? So I think it's for folks that want to, do like the gym thing with like EDC thing at once. I think it works well if you're commuting by car, because as I mentioned, like this is not like the most comfortable thing to wear over extended periods of time, but at the same time, it also kind of works okay, depending on your loadout, if you're commuting not by car and you don't want to carry like a duffel and a backpack, like a gym duffel and a backpack. Like, this gets you everything into one decently, I think, good looking compact bag. I think folks with relatively simple gear loadouts, you saw what it has: shoes, clothes, headphones, water bottle, and maybe like get some deodorant or something like that. And you want something smaller and more compact than a big ugly gym duffel, but your stuff won't fit in your normal EDC backpack. Great choice for this. It's performant enough to do the job, and is very well suited, I think, for like that dual EDC gym type of usage. And finally, as I mentioned before, I think it's actually a pretty good bag for overnight travelers. I found this bag to be like really competent for quick, casual trips. It even outperforms, I think, like dedicated so-called travel totes like the Tumi Bravo tote or whatever. It has lots of good EDC, wide open spaces, zipper closing top, luggage pass through, and just really good access. And it's just a nice little, like, if you want something a little bit smaller than a weekender, but with all the kind of like access benefits of it, this is actually a really nice bag for that. And I've used it in that capacity a couple of times. So in terms of who it's not for, folks with any kind of bulky gym gear, like I told you, like once you put the shoes in here, there's almost no space left. And then like you're not gonna be able to fit big things like basketballs or, big boxing gloves or whatever. It's also not maybe the best choice for people looking for an EDC, dedicated EDC tote. It doesn't have as much small item organization as you might want if you're looking for a dedicated EDC tote. And then the shoe pouch does get in the way, though. Obviously, you can fold that up, and then I think it's a lot less of an issue. So if you're in the market for a bag like this, what are some other bags that you might want to consider? So this is the Aer City Tote. This is the V1 version. This is the V2 Gym Tote. So there are some differences. You remember I talked about like kind of like the center mounted zipper. This one, obviously moves off to the side. So the Aer City Tote V1 compared to the Gym Tote V1 is extremely similar in size, dimension, pocketing, or whatever, except it doesn't have a built-in shoe pouch, but a lot of the other internal pocketing is very much the same. And, this is the V1, so you do have some differences in the internal pocketing or whatever, but you can see otherwise very, very similar kind of layout, save like the externally mounted water bottle pockets and the lack of the shoe pouch here. I think this is a great bag to consider if you don't need the shoe pouch thing, or if you are planning on carrying your shoes in a separate kind of shoe pouch, as I mentioned. Second kind of gym focused Aer offering. This is the Aer gym duffel. This is the V1. I think there's now like the V3, so like this is a couple generations behind. This one is a little bit larger, and a more traditional kind of duffel style, opening gym tote, but it has like more capacity. So you've got like a completely separate rear laptop compartment in the back there, and you've got a completely separate front EDC compartment with a bunch more organization. And then on the inside, you've got like this big wide opening on the inside. You still maintain the built-in shoe pouch situation going on here. It's just, you got 3 separate compartments, plus you still have like a front pocket out there and an external water bottle pocket here. And then you've got like a water bottle pocket here. And then you've got a shoulder strap plus carry handles or whatever. Definitely worth checking out, I think, if you have slightly larger carrying needs, gym needs, or you want a more traditionally structured kind of gym duffel style bag, but you still want to do the whole EDC, computer thing with this. I have previously reviewed the Aer duffel pack. I think 2 different versions of this one. I think I reviewed this one many years ago. This is like the V1, or I don't remember, V2. It was a while back. And then I've also reviewed, I think, the V3. I'll link both of these in the description below. I won't spend too much time talking about this, other than saying, if you like the idea of like carrying some gym stuff and, including your shoes with a built-in shoe pouch at the bottom, and having a bunch of like laptop and EDC organization in a backpack style kind of carry, which is obviously a lot easier and more comfortable to carry than like a tote style over extended periods of time. The gym duffel pack, the Aer duffel pack, V3, which is I think the latest one, is probably worth checking out. I quite like these bags. The only thing I will say is they carry just less stuff than the tote, just due to the form factor. And then I don't want to talk only about Aer stuff, so I'll finish this up with talking about the Mission Workshop Transit Duffel. This is technically more of like, I don't know, like I don't say travel. I used it a lot for travel type use. It is, but I've also used it for gym, I should say. That's why I mention it here. This is technically more of like a travel-oriented duffel weekender, but I mean, hence the name Transit, but it's fully water resistant. I mean, it's not waterproof, but it's very water resistant. Stands up on its own, nice rectangular shape. Has some like, accessories to like strap it to a bike or whatever. You've got like nice external laptop pocket here. You can see you've got also in here like this kind of coated water resistant layer on the inside. Opens up nice to reveal a bunch of drop-in pockets and more of that kind of water-resistant coating layer in there. I had some really nice, I like this bag a lot, and also some drop-in pockets on each side, on the front, on the outside there, which makes it very convenient for, just putting a bunch of stuff in there and getting at it quickly. I find the water-resistant lining very useful for the gym or for like outdoor situations where things are, when I'm traveling, set it down in a puddle or whatever. I like how kind of compact it is, and also the handles are, I like these handles a little bit better. There's also a built-in shoulder strap as well, but I like just hand carrying it like this. And so that's it. If you have any questions about this bag, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. And if I can, I will answer them. If you have any bags or other things you would like me to review, leave those in the comments below. And if I can, I will review them. Thank you very much.